James, what are you doing?
I got a number 4. Come take a look.
I don't want to look at your poop. That's disgusting.
That sounds like a myth we need to bust.
Well, James, I was raised to not discuss my poop, to think that especially women don't talk about their poop, and that it's just a taboo subject. And you're telling me that it's okay to stand with the door open and study your poop. Maybe not that far, right?
Yeah.
But poo is okay to discuss.
Yeah, I think it's, we need to start putting it back into the language of something that people can look at for an assessment for just how they're doing.
What does looking at poo tell you about someone?
Well, not a lot about their character, but more so just how they're packaging the food that they're consuming, and how well their body. It's like a low-level way of assessing how their body's doing with that food that they're packaging, and how they're reacting to it, and their overall like general state of balance between stress and calmness. Yeah, you can tell a lot even by that, right? There's a lot in there.
So as fitness coaches in our coaching practice, you'd suggest we have conversations with our clients about poop?
Yeah, frequency. Well, first of all, like big picture, just to put it across the table that it will be something that we'll kind of discuss, and then see what you get back with the tennis ball. Just shoot over the idea that these are the things that we like to discuss and look at, and then kind of see where they are on that. So I could like screen out, for example, where you sat on it as an example. I would know based upon your commentary right there that we'd have to get like 10, 15 minutes into a conversation just on, what observances did you have about your lifestyle, and what kind of things do you use to determine like how things are going, with your energy and your output, etc. So I would start there. Then you get to the specifics. Frequency. Do you notice that you have higher frequency or an urge to do it at these times? Do you notice that particular foods or particular things ask you to do this? And then it can get more specific. The smell, the size, the amount, floatiness, just kind of what it looks like. That's the far deep end of it.
So you're saying like some clients might not be comfortable talking about it up front.
And then you don't. We just say that we'll get to a point where we can open up the conversation for the investigation of it, to kind of use it as like depending upon how people are going to see it. Some people really like the idea that it's an assessment. It's like a laboratory, their own laboratory, right? And some may not be, and you gotta appreciate that. But we want to tie it into maybe how we look at other things in physical fitness as assessments that we like as truths, right? You can either hold the Sorensen for 2 minutes or you can't. We want to edge that up to being just like that. Now, the Sorensen is not as personal, but it doesn't mean we don't assess it. And then we can take from that a whole lot of great information around, where we want to be for the greatest standard for poo, around frequency and what we'd like it to look like, and that can get specific, but that's okay too. It's a good thing.
We have our little Bristol stool chart sitting here, and it's like a type 4 that we're looking for in our clients, ideally.
Optimally,
right?
For sure. And I generally like to not use that as the standard for starting points, because then everyone can get anxiety around not having that as the standard all the time. As an example, I can even remember the look on people's faces when I talked about the standard of 4, and you can see 20 years of their life gone by that they're like, I've never had that. And so now they perceive that's a judgment based upon, it's like almost telling someone they're never going to get a pull-up. You could just see it unfolding in front of their eyes. So you basically just want to give a synopsis of what it could look like as a starting point. And then, if it operates here, I generally go back to when they may not remember or when they do remember of what poo used to look like. Like if you heard me in CCP, I always talk about my children, right? And how I started off at a humorous note by saying my daughter was 3 and there's something that came out of her in the toilet that I was like, where did you store that? Like, where did that come from? But you see, it always gets that. So I start the conversation, but I'm not doing it for that. I then, though, say in a more serious tone, why did that stop? And that generally gets silence in the room of a real deep investigation now of like, yeah, what are the things, James, tell us, that led us to just letting go of that, And I think we just take it for granted today that, based upon what I know from assessing, not meaning I'm looking like you are around the corner at everyone's poo, but talking about to them honestly, that there's a huge majority of people that don't operate around the 4. So again, it's not spending all the time on trying to have an absolute score, but we need to investigate it. And then with what we do in OPEX, what we teach, we just give basic lifestyle guidelines that generally improve that, which is food hygiene, great food hygiene practices. That's a great balance of your nervous system prior to trying to absorb the foods. Where you source your foods, right? And the whole communal aspect of bringing everyone together and eating. Staying hydrated, moving every day, and a list of other things that we allow people to just express themselves through defecation the way that would be best. Yeah.
If someone is looking after all those basic lifestyle guidelines and they're still, having type 1s or type 7s on ideal poops, what would you as a coach then do?
Yeah, well, I do a recheck on all the BLGs, and sometimes it could be, and this is just could be, it doesn't mean it is the case for all those, a change in macronutrient profile. Sometimes that may change some things up. You may have to do a little bit of a deeper investigation for what would be considered like acute aversions to foods. That could be let's call it, like you don't see right on the front, but underneath it could happen, So in that case, it sounds a little bit more complex because it is, But you may have to remove some foods past the macronutrient profile change. You may have to remove some foods and then do a back and forth now how about that? And they're like, oh yeah, it's like, okay. So, and then it just, it works its way back to finding a nice balance. And that's not an overnight thing. That takes weeks and practice.
For ongoing issues, like if someone felt they weren't equipped to do that with their client, would you then refer them out to see a medical professional?
Ah, gosh, that's a tough one. I'll be honest though, today I know I wouldn't do that. I wouldn't, just because I can't trust that commentary that'll come out of my mouth for trusting in what the answer will be. In a lot of cases, it's not unfair, but it's truth that it's going to be duct tape through mechanical fibrous things that actually put more beating on the gut, or some kind of medication that allows things to move through. But that doesn't help the underlying issue with why they're not operating with, let's just look at it this way. Like this is, some people find this very surprising. Sometimes anxiety causes changes in that. So if that is the case and we know that, then what's the remedy for it, right? The remedy is conversation and allowing an open space for that client to talk to you about what is ailing them emotionally and cognitively. So you see, I didn't do anything in prescription that's going to do that, but days and days later, when they come out of that turmoil, they will report back to you. It's like, yeah, my poo is better. It's like, what did you do? All you did was create an open space for it. You didn't give them psyllium husks or, these concoctions of things. They're like, oh, these will move foods. Do you see what I'm saying? So if that is the truth and the case for one example, which I've mentioned it because it happens a lot, then it is possible that we just need to do a balancing of all the BLGs, and generally we'll come back to and then there is individuals that we know who are, let's call it on that continuum, operate in a really a rough state, and there's lots of reasons for that, which sometimes are genetic, sometimes it's multiple different things, disease, immune system disruptions, medications, a whole bunch of things that can cause it over there. But we hopefully won't be presented with all those that results in some medical intervention for most.
So largely, for the majority of people, are honing those basic lifestyle guidelines, making sure that they are ticking the boxes in all of those areas and creating balance between them is going to result in better poops. And conversely, better poops are also insight into how effectively that person is following the BLGs.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah, exactly. That was great. And as you were saying it, I didn't mention in the list, right, the water and movement and whatever, but people forget that my last point, just to take heed with that one, that in a lot of cases it's the enteric nervous system and the whole package that either is just like in a little bit of a, or there's something else causing some trauma to it, and that could be a lot of things, that could be really intense exercise. That could be a repetitive overload of the same foods over and over, I've just seen that happen way too often with individuals, and generally at the back end, right to the back, it's just getting people to calm down. And then when they calm down, things can operate effectively. And we know that's the case because of, when people travel, as an example. Folks travel and they're in a different environment and they can't poop or poop as frequently, right? I'm not talking about big time shifts, but it's like, why is that the case, right? And you'd be like, yeah, that's weird, isn't it? No, we have to dig into that, right? Because the whole defecation and pooing and the rhythm around that, your body is set in tone with how you operate, and we just have to see that that's the case. So there's no remedy for it, like a laxative or increase salt crystals in water or whatever. They just have to recognize that they're being controlled by their environment for that. So
I think that's the best part of coaching, the fun part.
yeah, for sure, right? I'm not sure if that's where you're going with it, but is to opening up people's eyes to that awareness. Yeah, for sure. And if anything, if this video, which we hope it does, it just starts the conversation with individuals on the lack of judgment in it, but the awareness of it. And when you start with awareness of it without judgment, it allows like a good conversation of how to remedy it with the basics, as opposed to duct taping it and not discussing it. So that's the remedy, is not withholding conversation. The remedy is discussion.
Guys, you heard it here first. Poo is not taboo, and you can play a big role in helping that by having honest, non-judgmental, empathetic conversations with your clients about their poop.